Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. We are back with Social Confoes and we are pretty chill tonight. Stuff look a little bit different, trying out some new stuff. But without further ado, Sean, look, what are we doing today? We postponed it an hour. Um,
Yeah, we're gonna do a, how should we call this? A late night episode, and it's just gonna be a real social conversation. So it's gonna be a little bit different. I want to try something differently as well, and I hope that it brings the same value as our regular podcast episodes bring. So for you who are, if you're tuning in live, thank you for staying up an hour later to join in. And for those of you who are listening to the recording, thanks for putting your trust in us that we can share some valuable content. So, Diego, I do want to ask a question. In the announcement post, or at least the announcement visual, you put a chessboard. Does it have a
yeah.
specific reason behind it?
Well, when you told me make an announcement today or yesterday, I was thinking, what would be appropriate to symbolize something we both value, something we both apply, and has some kind of deeper meaning behind it with just with without just being a piece. So I saw this image on Pexels actually. That's where I usually get my stock photos. Um, and it was like the symmetry is nice. It was black and white. It kind of fit the profile and it kind of highlighted the bishop in the chess piece on the chessboard. And I'm not sure if you've watched the new
Yeah,
movie on Netflix with The Rock and Ryan Reynolds and Gal Gadot, where they're
I've heard
kind
a
of
lot about it, but go
yeah,
ahead, tell me,
I
tell
think
me.
it's called Red Notice. Yeah, Red Notice, and they play the part of the bishop. So it's kind of a key chess piece. So kind of that's why I came up with the idea. Yeah, this is kind of appropriate, and you are a avid chess player
Okay.
yourself. So what does chess mean to
I'm a,
you? What did you think when you saw it?
It's it's interesting that you say that I'm an avid chess player because over the past year I've played I think at least 4,000 matches. As
Four
insane as
thousand
that sounds,
four
but I
triple zero.
only yeah but I only play 5 minute games.
Mm-hmm.
I only play kind of like blitz, and the reason it kind of if I have 10 minutes to spare, I want to do something that kind of it gives me a reason to think or I like so I'm like a very peculiar person when it comes to conversation. So for me it's very difficult to have a conversation about nothing. Like I'm just not equipped for it. I want something to have meaning. I can't read novels. So if I read a book, it's either a personal development book or a book that goes into something deeper. Um, so when I like am scrolling on the internet, I want to avoid that I scroll on the internet and just scroll to a Facebook page or a feed or an Instagram feed and just don't not doing anything. So when I procrastinate, even when I procrastinate, I want to spend my time
You want to get
procrastinating
something
something that
valuable.
actually builds a skill.
Yeah.
I want to get something valuable out of it. So when I lose a chess match, because I'm just kind of just playing to get my head on decluttered and unstressed, then I don't mind it as much because in a way it brings value. So even in times when I'm kind of like looking for to escape reality as they call it, I still want to do something that stimulates my mind in a certain way. So I haven't first of all, I've never been taught chess. My daughter has been taught chess. And that's when I realized like, okay, I could probably be a lot better at chess if I would just get lessons or if I would just do puzzles.
With
But
not
for
being
now,
taught chess, do you
yeah.
mean like you know the rules, but you haven't actually ever been, had a formal
I've never
instructor
had a
and
lesson.
learned strategies and etc. You just learn the rules basically from the box or
Yeah,
whatever.
I just started playing online with no knowledge. So like I don't know if you know what the ampersand is, which is like if the chess piece, if your opponent moves the chess piece and you just pass it like uh, with your pawn, you just pass it. It's
Hmm.
called ampersand, which is a move that I think you don't learn that move in regular chess lessons as one of the first things, but it was one of the first things I learned because I had no idea what it was and I had to figure out like how is such a move allowed on the board. But the reason why I learned about that is because I just started playing games of chess just for without having an account on chess.com you can play like against bots and then you can go certain levels. And the first time I started playing I just started memorizing stuff like certain situations because the bots they always kind of move in a certain way and because the ones that you get to play against are very limited for free without creating an account. So I just started playing and I was okay. I want to beat a 400 player now. Okay, I want to beat a 600 player now. I want to beat an 800 player. And at a certain point, I was getting to like I could beat like the 1300 player, like a 1300 chess player, but I couldn't beat the 1500 chess player. Whatever I did, I got frustrated that I couldn't come up to the level of 1500 elo. And
So for
yeah, go ahead.
reference, what is like the best chess player ranked at if you had to rank them in points, where
Okay,
do you fit in this skill, or how does that
o-
scaling work within chess?
okay. So if you have like no experience with chess, people advise you just to start at consider 500, 400, 400 elo. And then when you have, you know, the basic rules and you know the kind of all the rules and all the pieces of what they do, you should be considered to be at least 800. But when it comes to tournament play, like most players that play tournaments are like 1500. That's like basic tournament level, which is not a lot, but then you know really how to play. Like somebody from Suriname is representing, or what just this past month represented us in an international tournament, and he was kind of ranked like 1500 or 1600. And then when you get to 1800, that's when you start really getting into like if you want to become a FIDA master or a national master or an international master, that's when the 1800 up to 2000 when you really start getting to that. And then when you get to 2200, you get to being a grandmaster. Like that's kind of like, and then you go up to the 2600 and even 3000. Like there are a lot of online chess players that are ranked 3000, but in like regular chess, which is like really there's no time increment. This you so you get to think as long as you want about a certain move. Then it's I think Magnus Carlsen is around 2800. But you do have to understand because I'm telling you how I finally was able to beat a 1500 player, but it was a 1500 computer who kind of always plays the same five moves, which you can at a certain time predict the patterns and the moves, and you can go back and those kind of things. So if I would play like a 1500 rated player in real life, 9 out of 10 times I would lose that match. Um,
Interesting.
if I would play an 1800 player, I could play for days without ever winning a match.
What what would you say if you look at it from a development and skills point in learning, is that gap from 1500 to 1800 being actually able to win? Is it like reactive? Is it like thinking 10 steps ahead? Is it what
Well,
core competency within chess do you think, for
you
you at
can't. You,
least?
for chess is the thing is you can't cheat the system. Like there are people who've just played longer than you, or there are people who are just better that have better insight in how the pieces work, or you have people that have better opening strategies, or you have people that have played against your style often and know how to win your style. Because like up until 1500, everybody that plays has a certain preference. Like when you get to the 1500, you really kind of all, or you're all around, you know, kind of how certain attacks work, how certain gambits work. You're able to recognize gambits and play gambits and know kind of like at least 10 openings, like the first 10 moves. I don't know any opening. I know that there are certain openings that I like to play, but I don't know what the correct order of those opening moments is. So when we talk about like competitive chess players, basically if you're an amateur like just doing it for fun, you cannot beat professional chess players. It's just like any sport, like tennis, like or basketball. You could hit a ball, you could shoot it on basketball, you could shoot the ball into the hoop, but then all of a sudden when you play a match, you have to know how to dribble, but also have to know how to dribble without the opponent stealing the ball. You have to not
Yeah, it
only be
becomes
able to shoot,
subconscious behavior actually. Like,
but you also have to be able to shoot in rhythm while somebody's running at you. It's like a completely different game. And it's basically the same with chess. So like I can have a favorite opening and I could actually beat like a 1500, 1600 player once because I used a certain opening and they got caught off guard or they weren't sharp. But 99% of the time they will just beat me because they're just really better. And a, a 2000 player could even tell me like, listen, I'm not going to play with my queen. You can play with your queen. I'm going to remove my queen from the board. And they will still completely demolish me.
with a
I
handicap.
probably think a grandmaster could probably play without all of his rooks, without all of his uh, bishops, and without the queen and still beat me because you just won't be able. They're so far advanced with the way they think about the game that it's not even close. Yeah, it's not even close. It's just not even close. People don't really understand how good like a, a grandmaster chess player is. It's like it's on a different level. Like when we see a lot of YouTubers who are great at chess and they YouTube about it, but those people often are like international masters or FIDA female grandmasters or female masters. But like I think the two people that are like really at the highest level that really have like YouTube channels are Daniel Nagrowski and of course sorry, Hikaru Nakamura. Those are kind of the two like real legit, and a couple of guys from Chess Bro actually who are really good. And yeah, but even for them, like they are GMs, and they often play guys to have like no official rating with FIDA, but are like 2500 and up, and they get caught sometimes as well. But those are really people that if you would play against them in a park, you would have no chance whatsoever, like zero.
Very interesting. So we got some comments coming in from
Yeah,
Giuliano. I think he's tagging some friends here because we're talking about chess. So
yeah.
yeah, feel free to invite them over. Mitch, what's up? It's been a week now since you've been on our own wizard talking about DeFi. If you missed that episode, check it out. He also shared some very, very useful links on Facebook. We still need to incorporate those in the post. But if you are interested in DeFi, Mitch is your guy. Check out his links. And Suen is joining the chat as well. Yes, he has seen Red Notice. Pretty good movie actually
Okay,
for actually The Rock's production studio, their first movie on Netflix, and they broke all the records. So that was pretty
that's
cool.
pretty cool.
Yeah.
So I have to ask, have you seen The Queen's Gambit?
No, I heard it's good and I know it's
Yeah,
about chess. I tried watching the first episode, but I just couldn't finish it for some reason. I don't know why, but yeah, I pressed play halfway through.
yeah.
It just didn't
It's
hook
kind
me.
of a relatability issue, I think, as well. And I don't know if I wasn't that big in chess at the moment that I watched it, if I would have watched it because it's a different perspective. But it's really it I kind of went back to the scenes of the movie to kind of figure out that. And it's funny because one of the things that is mentioned in one of the things that's mentioned in the series is the scholar's mate. which is a really funny checkmate. It's a three move checkmate basically. And if you play against a beginner, like somebody who's just learned how the basic pieces work, you can easily pull a scholar's mate on them. So that's a really funny, like real life scenario kind of thing. And there are a lot of these scenario things in there as well. And actually, the move that one of the moves in the series, like one of the defending moves that the not the main character but the main opponent always plays, that's actually become one of my favorite moves as well. So that's kind of a very um interesting way to approach it. And I think the second thing that I really find interesting is there are like the traditional chess openings and new chess openings, and I really prefer playing the newer openings.
Yeah, so for me, I get what you mean with the relatability, and I do like, yeah, shows or series where there's a lot of mind games, a lot of strategy. So, for example, I do like the Sherlock Holmes series, stuff like that. But yeah, for some reason, Queen's Gambit that just didn't get me. So maybe I'll give it a shot in the near future, but yeah, for this
Yeah,
time
I have to
it didn't
figure
get.
out. So I think one of the favorite, and then we're gonna stop to talk about chess instead of making a chess episode. But one of my favorite YouTube channels is Agad Mator. Agad Mator is this YouTube channel where he explains like classical games and he goes through them and he explains everything. And I think that was one of the best ways to get into to chess because it tells you a little bit, like you can understand what a grandmaster is doing actually. Not that you would be able to pull off those moves, but you can kind of relate as in, oh, now I understand how the game works. But that's about it. If you would play that game yourself, you would be lost.
So pivoting from chess, you've mentioned some moves there, some combos, some finishing moves. If you relate that to like real life scenarios, to opportunities, has there been anything recent or something that comes to mind for you where you say, huh, if this were chess, it would play out like this, or where you apply the same manner of thinking within chess to, I guess, navigate through a situation?
I'd see it more as brain stimulus because here's the thing: I'm really more of a checkers player. I don't like multiple. So I only play chess, blitz chess, which is 5 minutes each. You have 5 minutes on the clock. That person has 5 minutes on the clock. And I play it because it gets me creative. I can be behind, especially if you're like around 1,000, 1,100 player, like I am. I mean, it's more about creativity and finding ways and new ways to explore the game than really being good at chess and really winning every match. So it's fun for me when I play a match and I'm behind and I come back from behind just because I see certain lines that my opponent doesn't see. But it's not like I'm really studying the game to become better, to become like a competitive player, because those things are not kind of like what I'm seeking for. And I'm more of a checkers player, but checkers kind of there's like a plateau where you can't go any further unless you really start studying the game. And I'm reaching the same point with chess. I did some studying, watching YouTube videos when I kind of hit like a certain threshold. So I did do that. But to relate it to like real life scenarios is I don't think I'm looking at it and saying like, ah, this is something from chess, but it does keep my creativity going and it does help my mind to be busy and to find opportunities and ways and not think like, okay, I'm stuck here. I don't know what to do, and then just let it go. But always finding a solution, always finding a way out. And the only problem I have is like I don't play regular chess because it's too long. Like if I'm playing a game with a friend or with my dad or with somebody else, I don't mind it lasting half an hour, but it's not like I'm gonna sit there, and I'm not a big puzzles guy, so I won't be sitting there for an hour thinking like, how do I fix this issue? I just move on, lose and move on to the next.
Yeah, because chess and checkers, there's more variables. And if you add shogi to that layer of complexity, the Japanese kind of chess generals game, I've watched that, and like it's just crazy the combination and rules that you have to know and apply. So pivoting away from that, so we wanted to talk a bit more about opportunities for people here, and also we've mentioned this a lot in previous episodes on look for opportunities. We had Moreno on, who kind of, if you want an example of someone who navigates and grabs every opportunity he can, it's Moreno Jackson. So check out that episode. For I think, if I remember correctly, he was within 4 years he traveled, I think, 23 times or 22 times for an exchange program or something, as an opportunity. So what other avenues do you think people should look at, if it's not being able to travel abroad, but to
It's so
develop
much.
themselves here?
It's so much. So the reason I wanted to bring up this topic is because, and we're having a really big. The issue that we're having currently is bigger than we think. There are a lot of people leaving Suriname at the moment. There are a lot of young, talented people leaving Suriname at the moment, and they're all leaving because they have opportunities abroad. They have opportunities to go somewhere else. They have opportunities to have a better life, a better lifestyle, more education, whatever it may be. And it's kind of hard to say to them like, stay here. You rather tell them like, just go. If you're able to get the opportunity, you should definitely go. I'm grateful enough to have had that opportunity, and I value that opportunity so much that I wish that everybody in Suriname would have the opportunity to experience that as well. You know exactly what I'm talking about. You've also seen parts
Yeah.
of the world, and I think people underestimate how important that is for your general development. I think one of the most underrated qualities of somebody from Suriname is like most Surinamese people, you can put them anywhere in the world and they'll survive. Like we like to talk about all the negative stuff about Surinamese people, but one of the main characteristics of Surinamese people is that you can put them anywhere in the world and they will survive. And often they will be able to adapt or understand the culture better than a
Yeah,
lot of
they'll
other
even
people that
excel.
because here's the beauty of growing up in Suriname. You have all these cultures, and of course there's discrimination and those kind of things, but you're used to seeing two cultures together, living together. We're used to seeing that. And so wherever we go in the world, we don't have the kind of idea like it's not possible. We always believe it's possible. And it also kind of puts you in a situation like, hey, if I can survive in Suriname in these situations, if I'm in a country where I have a better situation, I'm actually having a better situation. And there are of course extremes. Like there are also people coming to Suriname who would have it even worse than the situation that we have, and for them Suriname is actually a better option. But I think what is being underestimated a lot is that there are first of all more opportunities than ever for young entrepreneurs, young professionals to get opportunities abroad and live abroad. But there are also more opportunities than ever for doing the same thing that you were going to do abroad, learning the same skills that you were going to learn abroad, and actually stay in Suriname. And I do feel that you have to actually live abroad first to understand the opportunities that you have online while living in Suriname.
I,
But
I,
I
I
do feel,
agree with that statement.
yeah,
It gives you a different perspective, a different set of appreciation of the situation here. because it's not always rosy in those first world countries that you see in the media all the time. It's not always you hear the numbers, you see the lifestyle, but you don't see what's happening behind with all those regulations, laws, working hours that goes paired with it. So I do agree that experiencing that firsthand is very important. And of course, if you've never been, if you get the opportunity, I'd say do it. Don't even think twice about it. Grab it, go. If it's for a few months, if it's for a few years, get that exposure and then come to your own conclusion. Um, Definitely agree with that. We have some more viewers. I don't think I've ever seen Reno in our chat
Well,
before. So Reno,
he
welcome.
hasn't commented before, but you know, welcome. And I think you touched on a valid point there. I think for people that don't know what it is like to be just a number, like in Suriname, we're kind of like this small community. Kind of everybody knows one another. You already know somebody that knows somebody.
It's
Um,
easy to it's way easier here to get connected with one of the CEOs of the top company than if you were in somewhere with millions of peoples, and then yeah, you're just a number.
yeah, just being living in a city with 1 million people, that's kind of already something that you have no idea what it's like. But you mentioned something interesting like connecting because I feel like it's much easier to connect with somebody now. And um, I feel like, and you're gonna have to help me with this, Diego. I sometimes feel like we're much more afraid to commit to a certain online community, and I don't know where exactly that comes from. So let me give you an example. Like you're a very big fan of Tom, and you follow his stuff, and for me, it's really hard to pick a community, go become active in their Discord, become active in the community, and stay active and be a part of that knit. And I'm not sure if that's the same for a lot of other people in Suriname or that it's something else.
I get where you're coming from, and I do have that sometimes as well, especially with a lot of online communities now. I think it's a sense of relatability because, for example, in this past year, I'm part of the Fee Friends community, but as you mean, I'm not as active in the Fee Friends community. I just check the Discord every day, look for the notifications if Gary posted anything interesting, and that's it. And every now and then I'll do comment if I see something interesting, but that's about it. I'm part of the On Deck community as well. I did the fellowship there, but I haven't really followed through with that community yet. And I think that part is more a sense of intimidation for me at least. Like the group of people, the class of people, the breed of people there. You're like, oh, Fortune 500 people are in those communities, and it's kind of intimidating in that sense. We do have there was a tight knit group that meets every week, and now like every 2 weeks, uh, and there are a few people that hold are the glue that holds it together. But in Tom's case, Impact Theory, for example, that kind of hit different for me, I think, because I relate more with the type of content and uh, the way he thinks, especially. I think I don't remember who it said. I think it was it Gregory, but someone in our close circles told me that um, he sees some resemblance of Tom in me in personality and thinking wise. So I think that resonance matters. And also if I look in the type of content he posts, the mini communities that are in there about, comic books, manga, anime, video games, kind of gamifying all that stuff. It's kind of up more my alley. So in that sense, I'm kind of more active in that community. So that's kind of how I look at it if we're talking about online communities. And there's many more Discord communities that I'm in. But yeah, I
But it's
do
also committing. So I'm trying to figure out like
the
what's gonna
commitment
make
part.
us commit because the biggest problem is we're afraid to commit.
So
And
for me in
yeah.
that specific community, it's like the project that he's doing. There's something to talk about there. The shall I call it the hype cycles? I don't know how he does it, but you're looking forward to the next call or the next session. For example, there are weekly like 15-minute sessions where you have a Q&A, and there's a lot to unpack there. And equally, if I look at what the possibilities are with on deck, for example, there are a list of opportunities there as well. But I just haven't sat down because I don't think there is a figure or a person there that I can match up to, like reflect and go through the content or go through the opportunities. It's more so I'm not as committed there, if that makes kind of sense. That's kind of how I'm unpacking it right now as we're talking about it.
Yeah, so I'm trying to figure out because from a business perspective, there's something called superfan, and like what these communities kind of do, especially like the big guys, they have like complete structures in place to get you from being a casual fan to become a super fan, from being a super fan to be really getting value, high value out of it. And there are like 4 or 5 people that I'm really interested in, but you have to commit to one because you don't have the time
Yeah.
to get all the information from those 5 different people. So at a certain point, you're like, either I'm gonna be like, okay, I'm just gonna take whatever's in my fuel at the moment, or you're just really gonna commit to one. And I think that for me is one of the most difficult things.
I've kind of, if I look at my time at the university, I've also kind of learned to skim through information. Like I have certain filters set, like oh these channels are where there's relevant stuff, and then I just skim through it real quick, look for keywords, and once you get the hang of it, you start even searching for specific keywords. So that's how I kind of filtered Twitter as well.
Yeah, but then you're not really connected and part of the community, if you understand what I'm getting at.
Mm-mm-mm.
So what people don't realize is that, or I think we might realize it, but we don't take advantage of it enough. If you really commit to something like a small community, it's pretty easy to get into the top 5%, the top 1%. I'm
Oh,
gonna
oh
give
yes.
I'm gonna give an example. Like with NBA Top Shot, I'm a top 4% owner. Like I'm like in the top 25,000 of the world, which sounds like nothing, but if there are like a million people doing the same thing and you're in the top 25, it would be the same thing if there would be like 1,000 people being busy with it and you're in the top 25. Just to put it into scale. So it's really easy because in Suriname, it's really easy to be the best of something in Suriname. Like it's not really that hard. If you commit to something that's not very familiar in Suriname and you spend 3 to 5 years on it, you can easily become like the number one specialist in that specific field because there's just not that much competition. Now, if you are the best in Suriname, you could be like the top three in the Caribbean, the top five or top 10 in Latin America, and then maybe the top 100 in the world. Like take our top sportsmen for instance. Like we have a couple of champs. That's really how good and how much talent there is. But it's easier to become a national champ than it's to become a Caribbean or a South American champ or an American championship. So to put that in perspective in business, and then you realize like you can easily have like for your business be considered among the best in the country. And then when you extrapolate it through the Caribbean, all of a sudden you're not there anymore. But from opportunity perspective, if you would just dive deep into and commit to a certain person, like you see somebody who is influencing you a lot, whether it's Kerry Vaynerchuk, Grant Cardone, Guy Kawasaki, like any figure that's publicly kind of sharing knowledge, and you really dive into their community and like authentically care about what's going on, authentically kind of interact with others, help others out, you can easily get into the in crowd.
Definitely. And I think something to look to as well is the size of their, I guess, community following through fans. Um, you mentioned a few, people in business there, like Gary P. He has a huge following. I think I'm not sure about Grant Cardone, but Guy Kawasaki for the old days as well, huge following. And if you look at these communities, sometimes too big is kind of also too big because the gap is bigger. And if you find a smaller community, if you have persons you look up to who have kind of a tighter knit community, like the reach is to them is even smaller, it gives you a better connectivity or a better sense of commitment because the gap is smaller and so you have the probability of maybe directly interacting with this person is actually there, that they see your comment and actually respond to that comment. So maybe that's another thing to look into, that if the community is too big, that might be too intimidating. Find a smaller community, and I think that's where Hive is still very powerful because it is a very small, tight knit community. And talking about the rankings, the with you, for example, NBA Top Shot top 4%, it's very easy. I just quickly checked the Discord server. I'm pretty casual chatting in the Discord server, but they have like some gamification with bots and give you a level. So I just checked my rank and I'm a level 12 now. And I'm ranked number 233 out of 56,000 people within the Discord of, chatting, commenting. That's already kind of an in crowd, a small crowd. So people start to recognize your names, people start to recognize your profile picture. And I want to go into over under later on PFPs. But yeah, and also in gaming, for example, I started playing Gods Unchained like 3 4 weeks ago, and people who play the alpha, obviously they're gonna be have the best cards, the highest ranked tournament players, kind of like chess as well. But I played it for like 3 weeks and I've managed to rank up all the way to mythic. That's the highest tier, and there are only like 250 players in mythic with 25,000 players right now. So committing actually to it, yeah, of course there's some NFT and monetary
You're
reasons
trying to
involved
make
in
me
playing
switch,
that.
aren't you? You are trying to make me switch.
I'm not. I'm just
Yeah, yeah,
I'm
that's a
just saying.
great sale. That's a great
I'm
sale.
just saying. The percentile, it's kind of more accessible because the community is small. So that's kind of how I see it from that perspective
Yeah,
as well.
yeah,
If you can get an early, small, tight knit
yeah,
community, you kind of you get more
yeah.
alpha experience.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I think that's for me really like for people just watching the show or just listening in to the recording. I do want to challenge you. I would just want you to kind of write down names of people that you feel like if I could, I would work for this person, and then
And
just pick one or two names.
even better,
Yeah,
would you work for this person for free?
yeah, and just start as you, especially if you were willing to work for this person for free, just to get the knowledge. Start engaging with their community, not with them, because they have no idea who you are. And there's like nobody in the world who has a following over 1 million is just gonna be like, oh, this random person from Suriname just sent me a message. Maybe I'll just spend an hour with this person and ask them how their life is and help them out. I mean, like, no, just spend time and effort, maybe even a year or longer, of just getting to know the community, getting to know how the person. You know what I love about Gary Vaynerchuk is like he always says, don't just listen to what I do, watch what I do. You can learn a lot by just watching. And I've never bought a course of Gary because it doesn't exist. I have purchased items from him, like his shoes, but
And the books.
and the books. I never pay, which I haven't read all of his books either. I just have books, Gary Vee books here. I have read through them. I got inspired, but I didn't even finish them. Because what happens with Gary is like, if you start reading, you get inspired and you want to do, and you just put down the book. And if you're a doer, you will just continue doing, and then be like, in a moment when you have like, you're down or you don't feel motivated, you can pick the book up and you can continue again. And I think for a lot of people, they just consume the content. They're like, yeah, and then they just drift back into their own thing. Whereas for me, he has never given me personal advice, but I owe a lot of my success to him just by watching kind of, oh, this is how he approaches. Can I do something similar? And in some cases, I kind of copy the things that he does in a way that works for me. And in other cases, I realize, like, but I'm not that kind of person and I don't have to do it. Um, so I think there's so much opportunity to learn in the online space, but also to connect, to find opportunities. And I feel like we do have like the role for our generation to get more out of it. Like I hear really disheartening stories of people who have graduated, who have a university degree, and they're sitting at home saying like, I can't find work. And I'm like, how's that possible? How can you have a university degree and not work? And I think it's not fully fair that I think of it that way, but that also relates to seeing the opportunities. And you were asking about chess. For me, it's like if you have a chess piece on the board, you can still play. You might not win, you might not be the number one winner, but you
But you
can
can make
still
it
do
hard for
something.
them to make you
Yeah,
lose.
yeah, and you could be somebody who's brave and achieve something. And there's also the idea that, yeah, if you have money, then you can just copy the idea and do it. Like, no, it's like, you, if it's not where your heart is at, you can have all the money in the world, but you will not have the same enjoyment as somebody who just does it because he or she loves it. And I just think there is so much opportunity, and it kind of, so if you're like listening to this and you're in Suriname and you have like a bachelor or master's and you can't find a job, come talk with me because I could give you like 10, 20 ideas to get your mind motivated and find a way that you can at least earn something from it. And I feel like we're really missing the opportunities. And I do have to give a shout out to the ICT Association because they had a event today talking about the idea of why ICT is so important and what the technological innovations are. But they're talking at it so much from a policy perspective and not from a practical perspective for young professionals, like people between the ages of 18 and 30 that are really like not getting the opportunities or don't understand how to get the opportunities that are there for them. So I do feel like I do want to do something more also with social confoes, do something more that people realize like, wait a minute, I do have these opportunities. I have the internet. I can do something. Let me do something with it. And I feel like we're not doing that enough. Even me personally, I'm not doing enough. I could do more with that.
Oh, definitely, definitely. Me myself, yeah, there's so much that we could do, but just not doing because one, you just don't want to take that step, or too scared, or coming up with excuses. But I do want to emphasize one thing you mentioned there about, you could have all the money in the world to copy an idea and it would still fail. And I want to emphasize that thing. People are, especially here, I feel too scared to share their ideas with that exact fear of someone with more resources swooping in, copying it, or buying it. And then, you know, they kind of lost the idea. And and in my opinion, you can never lose an idea because you never owned an idea. It's just an idea.
Well, you can own the idea. I mean, you could go and patent it, like get a patent for
Even
it.
then, a patent, I feel like,
But then you have to work for it as well. If you
yeah,
get a patent,
it,
you have
it,
to
it it
work.
matters in the execution. And if you keep that idea for yourself, no one's gonna see it. One, you won't get investors. Two, you won't get customers. Three, people won't know that you're the one who came up with it. So kind of
Or you don't
just
find
share.
out that it's
It's not
shitty
for you.
idea.
Yeah. So I would encourage people to just, how stupid it may sound, how nerve-wracking it may be, to just share it publicly and get prepared to receive feedback, negative, positive, whatever it be. Get prepared to receive feedback because that is, um, you know the data point that you'll need to progress. And even if you fail, because I think I mentioned this once, I've heard this from Tom. He said, like, failure is the most information rich data stream that exists. So you can learn much more from failure than your own failures than an actual success of somebody else, because you only see success of other people, you don't see the shit they went through.
It's
So
like
that's kind of my short rant on, don't keep ideas for yourself. Just share, build in public. That's a movement that's kind of been going on as well on tech Twitter as well. People building stuff in public, receiving market validation like within hours actually, and sharing it, and then reiterating that idea. So that's the one thing I would encourage if you're talking about opportunities and ideas.
Thomas Edison said, "I haven't failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that don't work."
Exactly.
And even he at the end went
Those
for an idea
10,000
that
ways.
wasn't his. It was an idea that wasn't even his because he took it from Tesla. So these things are so funny because it's I think people really want to get credit for something that is just an idea, and they don't realize with how many billions of people in the world that you're not the only one who had that idea.
Exactly.
You just aren't. You're not that unique. Like, and somewhere, some point in time, somewhere in the world, a couple of dozen people had the same idea as you had. And out of those dozen people, maybe two or three actually executed that idea, and one actually got rich of it. It's like, and
And
of
the
course,
others are using
yeah,
it because it solved their problem.
exactly. So like, it's one of the things that I like to say, like in any kind of course that's about entrepreneurship. I don't care about your business plan. Just show me that you've sold either a product or a service 100 times, and tell me the track record of that product selling it 100 times. How many of these 100 times were people satisfied? How many of these 100 times did you figure out that somebody wanted something else? How many of these 100 times you realized like it's not a product, but actually the problem that the product or the service is solving? So these are like really things that people are like, yeah, I need a business plan, and yes, I need funding, and I do need that, and I did, and I went down that rabbit hole. Like my first business, I created like a complete strategic plan for the company and everything. And the biggest mistake we made, we overbought stock. So we were
Yeah.
there with that stock, and we weren't able to do anything with it. But the money was tied up because it wasn't a that stock.
But I would still encourage people to do it. It's a good mental exercise. It's a good way to fail
Yeah.
if you
No,
if you
because
do it.
again, you need those 100 sales to
Yeah.
know where you stand. Like, do people really need this? Or is this product or service actually providing a solution to the problem that people have? And in most cases, it's not. In most cases, it's just like, I want to do this. It's like, I always say in social media, like, we have a lot of clients or a lot of companies that come up to us and they're like, yeah, we want to start with Facebook and we're going to do social media marketing. And like, how did you get to the decision that you were going to use Facebook in the first place? And it's like, people have decided already which platforms they want to be on, without even figuring out which social media platforms are most suited for my business. So these are kind of like small details that the doesn't matter what kind of business you run, you always run into these things.
Yeah, definitely. And to change up gears a bit, real quick, linking up what I think we could shift to some quick over and unders. And the first one I want to go with, speaking of opportunity, it's November, and November is famous for, Black Friday month,
Damn
Black
it!
Friday, Cyber
How
Monday.
did you steal that from me again? Go ahead, go ahead. I don't
I'm
know how
not
you did
doing it.
that.
I'm
I
not
did.
doing
Okay, go ahead, go ahead.
I'm not doing this intentionally. I guess we're on the same wavelength.
Wow, this is scary. Okay, but
Okay,
go
but
ahead.
but yeah, it's November. Black Friday is right around the corner. Cyber Monday week. So Black Friday slash Cyber Monday, overrated or underrated?
Black Friday as an event, as a one day event, is kind of overrated. But Black Friday, the impact that Black Friday has is really, really, really underrated. Like, people don't understand the psychological and the mechanics behind Black Friday and what it does with people and how it gears people. Kind of, I almost have the feeling that it's almost like Black Friday brought back the fun in Christmas and maybe less in Suriname because in Suriname,
Repeat that. Black Friday brought back the
the
fun
fun
in
in
Christmas.
Christmas.
Interesting.
And I'm going to elaborate on a bit. Like the reason I don't think it's necessarily the case in Suriname because in Suriname, if you order something on Black Friday, you might not get it in time for
You
Christmas.
get it.
So don't take that risk. But and we've seen this for the past couple of years. But for me personally, it's like the Christmas fun was kind of dying off. Like you would really, and it's still for some like from a personal perspective, Christmas like the way it was celebrated, and also you get older, so as you get older, it kind of gets harder for people to get you gifts because they don't really know what you want anymore. Like when you're small, like anything can really make you happy, but at a certain point, you just keep getting socks. You know, my I don't. It's like some people in the family still try to buy you a shirt or something, but they're too afraid because of the weight change that they're buying the
Yeah,
right size.
sizing is very
So
difficult.
you get kind of
Materials,
hair
everything.
shower and towels and socks and like kind of these generic things where people are like, yeah, this can't go wrong. But like from a business perspective, Black Friday kind of brings back like, yeah, I'm gonna find a good deal because I know my niece or nephew wants this, and maybe on Black Friday I'm gonna get the best deal. And similar with companies that kind of wait the whole year to buy stuff on Black Friday, that's heavily underrated. But what is actually heavily overrated is the kind of deals that there are online on Black Friday. I mean, the deals just aren't that good anymore.
No,
Like
it's been like oversaturated with.
it's not worth waiting for Black Friday just for the deals because like these deals in general, it's like yeah, it's five
It's
percent.
it's encourages consumerism. But yeah,
Yeah,
let's not go into that this
yeah.
episode at least. Okay.
So
No,
kind of,
the
I do you
okay,
feel the same way, or
no,
is it?
I I agree with that part. Like, as a phenomena, it's kind of underrated, the psychological impact, as you said. But I find it grossly overrated. Same with Cyber Monday, tech stuff, etc. Because now every company kind of tailors their marketing, their stock, etc. in this period just to maximize sales and profit. And what you kind of get is, you get this rush for semi-average products because the premium stuff you don't get it.
Yeah.
All right.
So based on what you spoke about, crypto gaming underrated or overrated?
Oh, humongously underrated. I think we asked Mitchell this as well, like specifically one game, but the genre in general, I think it is grossly underrated. I think the gaming industry, to bring it even further, is grossly underrated. So if you combine gaming and crypto, two, in my opinion, very underrated subjects, and you combine them, so I find it grossly underrated. And why game I find gaming underrated is one, especially competitive gaming, esports, etc. It is a becoming a I think $1 billion industry. But also, as we talked about game development, it's kind of the forefront of technology. It's either game development or the military that drives technological innovation. So
Interesting. Interesting that you bring that up. Yes.
So I'd say crypto gaming definitely underrated, especially if you can get early access, and in this case, find something that you enjoy playing. Don't go after it for the monetary gains, because it has to be actual game mechanics that people would enjoy, like that gameplay loop. So definitely underrated.
That's just gonna make me go to CoinGecko to check out a price of a certain uh,
I think
cryptocurrency.
there are
Oh
certain
yes, this
ones
is
that are
beautiful.
get overhyped a bit now and then, but that's kind of the nature of the industry. You see it as kind of a company in itself, but the indeed everyone
Mm.
loves playing games. You have the moms and dads who play on their phone like the Candy Crush type of games. So there is a range of possibilities for people to try out. There's a market for everything, like mostly everything. And you should look at it from, do you want to be on the consumer side, competitive consumer side, but also on the creation side. There's much opportunity there.
So much opportunity. If people are watching that are creative writers, like are into writing about characters and those kind of things, there are so many. Like Exi, for instance, is looking for lore writers, like people that kind of write stories about these characters. And I actually, just for the fun, just want to jump into that.
Hey,
I really,
you never know, but if
yeah,
it's
but
just for the fun, I think that is the best reason. If it's just purely for the fun and
yeah,
taste of it, that is the best opportunity you can take without expecting anything in return, and just pure enjoyment of the experience.
yeah.
But yeah, grossly underrated that one.
Okay, let's go to the next one. I think you go first, right?
Yeah. So we had Black Friday, crypto gaming. So my next one is PFPs, because I saw you have a high funk as a profile picture now on Twitter. Overrated or
Okay,
underrated?
okay. So we're gonna have to explain a little bit about PFPs first, to put it into context for yeah, for the average
Uh,
person.
you want to take it, or
No, go
you
ahead,
want
go
me
ahead.
to? So PFP basically stands for profile picture. If you go on crypto Twitter or Twitter in general, you see people with um, punks, monkeys as their profile picture, animals or bears, and people kind of use this as their online identity in Discord as well. So a PFP is just basically a profile picture, and it's kind of very much tied to the NFT space right now. And the meme is people just right click, save that image, and use it as their PFP. So, in your opinion, are PFPs overrated or underrated, and why did you switch to your Hive Punk?
I think I just switched for fun, to be honest. Mm. It's also I switched to kind of give my support more so than actually thinking like, yeah, this is my true self, because the punk doesn't really look like me. But of the five that I have, it looks the most like me. So I had to make a decision about that. And I think it does give kind of people a sense what you're into and what you find interesting. So one of the game developments for NBA Top Shot is that they want to make it easier for people to see like what your collection is. Like kind of this goes really deep. Allow me to just go into a rabbit hole for 3 minutes. So the traditional way of identifying someone was through their parents. Like if we go back like 100 years, like one of the first questions that, for instance, Jürgen Reimann, who was like a famous Surinamese TV host, like one of the first questions that he asked in his
Who's your
first,
mom? Who's your dad?
who's your dad? Who's your mom? So who's your mom? Who's your dad? And basically, the traditional model of giving somebody identity is by saying, "Hey, that's the butcher's son," or "Hey, that's the teacher's daughter." Like that's how identification worked, like previously.
Just to interject there, fun
Yeah,
tidbit. That's how actually names like Smith and
yeah.
like those names kind of, because that was their occupation, their job, and that's
That's
how
the
they got that family
traditional
name.
that's the traditional way of creating identity. It's just through like you have a profession and you're known for that profession, and your children are known as the children of that said profession. That's basically how it worked. And then things started to change. So culture changed, and culture went to uh, being the person that you are to being the person what you buy. So all of a sudden, we got a generation where there was kind of this new wealth, and within the new wealth, people were able to buy certain things, and that would make them have a certain personality. So from a traditional perspective, it's like something like paintings. Like if you go to somebody's house and you see certain paintings, then you get an idea of like, okay, this person is kind of intellectual, this person is wealthy, this person is this, and that's kind of where kind of this again this form of identity comes from. And then so basically, great examples are like Converse shoes. Like people saying like, yeah, you have to have Converse shoes, otherwise you're like not a student and you don't fit in this. Or you have to have Birkenstock slippers because it kind of symbolizes something. And that was kind of the marketing plot of things. So that was Identity 2.0. And then you get into Identity 3.0. I'm not sure if I should call it 3.0, but where identity basically is who you say you are. So it's no longer about what your actual skill is or who your parents are. It's no longer what you're able to buy, what defines who you are, but it becomes the way you present yourself. And that's where these PVPs come in. That's where the fake stuff from Instagram comes in. And there's a funny story about one of my friends who is kind of an Instagram model, and she might be upset for me, but telling this, but luckily nobody knows who it is. But she kind of showed me like she took pictures and then she edits her pictures. But it's just not like we think like when we edit pictures, we like, yeah, we can saturate it a little bit more and work a little bit with the contrast and those kind of things. But this was like on her phone, just photoshopping the size of her head or the size of her arm or those kind of things. Like in real life, just at the moment there. I was like, wait a minute. And she was like, yeah, but that's the style. Like, so you could meet somebody who you can see like, oh, I thought they had like a smaller waist, but then in reality it was because the photos were shot. So these kind of things are really, there's also a story about, I'm not sure if it was a Chinese or a Korean man who was suing his wife because the
Yeah,
way of how the children looked, because she had so much cosmetic surgery and facial surgery that her original look was completely disappeared,
yeah,
and
he
the
got
children
deceived.
had the look of the original look. So it's these kind of things like your wait, like wait, what?
The
But
DNA is strong.
but it kind of gives you an idea of where identity went and like how identity now works. It's like a completely different spectrum. So it's no longer about like what your actual skills are and what your profession is. It's no longer what you're able to buy, what kind of defines what your personality is, and the kind of person that you are. But yeah, so the first two are like completely gone, and now is basically how you present yourself, and that's kind of a bit big threat because if you can present yourself better than you actually are, in short term you might gain something from it, but in long term, meh.
But
Like,
now people aren't even using photos of themselves. They're actually using a animated or a
yeah,
drawing
because
of
it it, it, it
monkey or
it's kind
something.
of the status it presents, like I'm able to afford this, or this is, so it's kind of related to both the first and the second and the third dimensions I've described. One being like, this is what I bought, so this is what I represent.
Mm.
And then it's also about, it doesn't even matter anymore if you bought it or but you just represent it. It's just saying like, I mean, like, I could put a profile pic of a board ape.
Yeah.
Like, people would actually figure out that I don't own it, but it's just, why would you do that? Like, for me, it doesn't make sense, but for other people, it makes sense because they're proud. And these little lies, if you're sharp and you catch people in it, they really shrink because they're like, oh my god, I got caught. Either they get offended by it, or they like completely shrink and they don't want to talk to you ever again or stay away from you because you caught them red-handed. But
So
these
in
kind of,
short, over or under?
I think it's heavily overrated in the long term. But right now, it's probably rated.
Yeah, I think for the culture shift to Web3, I think it is still underrated, in my opinion. But I
Mm.
can see for the long term how it could shift to overrated. But right now, in the next
I'm gonna give you an
cycle,
example.
in the next cycle
Cars,
at least. Sorry, repeat
uh,
that. Cars? Did you say
car,
cars?
yeah, car brands.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, for me, 15 years ago, I wanted an Aston Martin. Aston Martin. I always wanted an Aston Martin. Like, I think
Mm.
DB9 or something like that. I'm talking about 15 years ago, 10 years. Yeah, 15 years ago. I always wanted an Aston Martin. I thought that would be a super cool car. It would like, oh wow, this is an awesome car. Now I could give care less. I just want a car that drives me from place A to place B. Like, the
Because you
brand.
get perspective.
Yeah, but so these kind of things only matter for a certain amount of time for a certain amount of people. Like, for others, it's just, it's like, where's the value in it?
Agreed. But yeah, that's how I see it at this stage at least. So you got one
Okay.
last one to go?
Yeah, so since we talked about gaming and we talked about chess, Tetris, overrated or underrated?
Tetris. I think it has become underrated right now.
Again,
Again, yes. Why? Tetris is kind of like, if you look at gaming history, Tetris is one of the key games in all of gaming history that kind of made playing on a device popular and even competitive playing popular. A simple concept of stacking blocks on each other and a race to getting the most points, getting the most lines, and actually thinking ahead with speed, a speed element as well, to stack things strategically. And now you can even pocket a shape, etc., and to use it later. So I think it is underrated right now. And because the sheer simplicity of it as well, anyone can pick it up anytime. And they are remixing so many different types of Tetrises right now with effects, etc., with combos. But the core concept of Tetris gaming, I don't see it going anywhere. And it will have its resurgence probably in the gaming world in one way or another, probably in the metaverse. If we look at the metaverse gaming, maybe in 3D, because it's such a simple concept, it would be one of the easier models to implement and
yeah,
for
the
people
threshold
to
would be lower.
virtually come together and actually maybe build something. So I think Tetris is underrated, very underrated again, because you haven't heard of it in so long either.
Do you know Joseph?
Joseph, with Joseph.
I'm not sure what his. I'm gonna mispronounce his last name. But Joseph is like a 15-year-old world champion of Tetris, world classical Tetris. I don't know, 15, 16. I don't know. He's a little bit older now, but there was a big rise of Tetris due to his involvement and
Okay.
being such a young player and kind of destroying the field, like people who have been like legends for decades. So if you're interested in Tetris, if you like Tetris, if you like playing Tetris as a young as a child, you should definitely check out World Tetris and the Championships and Joseph. It's very very interesting, and you might find yourself watching way too much Tetris, but you probably won't regret it.
I want to sneak in a last one because you mentioned the keyword there. You'd be surprised how much you'd enjoy other people playing a certain game. So the last one is streaming, watching other people actually play a video game that you could play yourself, underrated or overrated.
I'm gonna go one step further because I think we unconsciously realize it, but we don't consciously realize it. And I'm gonna go a little through a little bit curveball. My son wants, and my daughter as well. Like we get upset that they are on the tablet or on the phone or something on a device, but and we're like, yeah, and they don't go out to COVID, but my children actually watch a lot of YouTube videos of other children playing with toys. And I'm not sure it's a good or a bad thing, like from a parenting perspective, but like they pick up a lot on how to use certain toys just
Yeah.
by watching the videos online because there are a lot of YouTube videos of children, but also adults who kind of show how certain toys work and the gameplay and they create. So we look at it from like more our generation perspective, going to watch a Twitch stream, just looking at what other people are doing and like learning from that. But our children are already like the next generation is already it's kind of programmed in like they want to visually see like, okay, I need to do this. How does this need to be done? And they will just go to YouTube and be like, there has to be a video on there that will explain it to me. And we might still do that for problem solving. Like if we have a big issue and like see like, okay, can we fix this? Is there a way that we can find it? But for them, it's also entertainment. And it might have boggled me for a bit. Like, why would you, you know, why would you actually just go watch other people play on YouTube? But then it started to dawn on me like, wait a minute, like these are levels that we're not familiar with because this is the first generation that's growing up in such a way.
Yeah. From that perspective, yeah, I think it is. If you look at the development, it's kind of still underrated what the implications are, and actually also the industries that you could be a streamer and make a living just showing people stuff.
Yeah, but also you got to put effort in it. So I
Yeah.
do feel we should close off with that because we talked about a lot of opportunities, a lot of games, a lot of ways, but you do have to put effort into it. And I do feel like I'm a little bit worried that we don't put as much effort into it as we should.
Yep. Eventually, people might end up like if you've watched Wally, the the people in the chairs. So let's not make that happen. But I think let's end it on that note of opportunities are endless, especially online. And to reach out to I guess any of us if you want to spar or just share or vent. But with that being said, Jean-Luc, I don't have anything to add or any fancy outro this episode.
Let's
We would
just
like everyone to tune who tuned in. Thank you for tuning in again, even though we were delayed an hour. So thank you guys, and yeah, Jean-Luc.
so just a simple exercise. Write down the people that you get inspired by and who you'd work for for free. And just instead of saying like I want to work for free, you can do that, but instead of giving that advice, I would say get to know the person, get to know the community, get involved in the community, especially if it's an internationally known person. get into the community, start interacting with people, like-minded people. You'll be surprised how like-minded sometimes they are, and grow from there. But start building, start the opportunities, start trying to get opportunities online, start learning, start failing, and hopefully in a year's time or in 5 years' time, there will be like a message saying like, "Hey, this really helped. This really worked out." With that being said, this was Social Confoes. We're back here next week, Tuesday at 9 p.m.
The
Surinamese
usual
time.
time. Yes.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.